Right, hello my darlings. Back to try to stitch up a little bit of a follow-up video to my collab video. When I was doing the album, the photo album flips, before setting out to film that, I didn't realize how just super shiny they were going to be, especially with lights on them for filming. So I set off to play and experiment a little bit and see if I can dampen down that super glossiness of the plastic. Some success, some failures, but stick around with me today as I muddle my way through it. So sort of from a plain, straight up, super shiny, empty pocket, I've played around with some gesso and adding pigment crystals and then stenciling on top of gesso. So I've had some interesting results. So please stick around and I hope you enjoy. So for you, I will be back in just a tick. Right, my darlings, back for a little bit of an experimentation and play with the photo album flips. So that is one that I tried to do with just a napkin to see whether it's still transparent. But what I put PVA down and I've effectively just made rice paper, haven't I? Because it's just peeled right off. So that's not going to waste. That can go to the side somewhere to live. And no glue has adhered from the napkin on the pocket at all. It's still very super shiny. So I need that for later. Pop that away. Then I tried sewing pattern paper. Similar principle to the napkin. I've essentially just made rice paper, one-sided. I think that's what it's called, rice paper. And that's fine. Then this is the one I tried with just PVA. Just straight up PVA on the pocket and let it dry. And this is actually slightly less shiny. Not by much. There's the original. And there's just PVA. It dampens it down just a teeny bit. So those can go away. Then I've got an off-brand matte Mod Podge, like a generic Mod Podge matte version. And it dried slightly differently and a little bit more grungy, if that makes sense. But it's still shiny. So put that away. Then I tried white gesso. Just cheap, bargain store white gesso. And all of my gloss is gone. Apart from where I didn't paint it on that edge. So where's that original gone now? So, no. That's an untouched one. So that is an undone sleeve. And that is with just white gesso on it. But, can this focus? I can see my brush marks through that because I just did it with a paintbrush. So, no, I want to keep that out. If I pop one of the cards in there, that is got no sheen at all. But I can see the brush marks. So what I want to try today is to use the cheap white gesso in 3 different ways of adding pigment, and I'm going to apply it with a sponge. Either that sponge or a makeup sponge to daub it on. You could use a white, but you could use a paintbrush. It just bugs me because I can see the brush marks. So anyway, let's have a go. So this is just bargain store white acrylic gesso. I bought it at B&M here in the UK. I think I paid like $2.99 for the whole pot. It's not great stuff, but it does the job. So for the colors, I'll come back to the colors now. Let's get some gesso into the palette. And as my new home, thank you, Holly, for my palette knives. So blob just a bit. Don't need much to cover one side of one pocket. Into each of these, we'll do 3. And then I'll pop them away to dry. Lid back on that. And pick one of these now to stir with. Come on. It doesn't want to square up. Why do we say that if it's going to square up when it's a round lid? Never mind. I'll use that one to stir. Give that one a wipe. So, for my colors to experiment with, not everybody has brusho. So, one of these I'm going to try what's called an OST blue in the brusho. I've got a liquid watercolor that is just a straight up blue. And I've got an acrylic one that's sky blue. So let's try the brusho first. Please, God, don't drop it. Oh, my word. I've seen accidents firsthand with brusho. It's not something that you want to tip over. So I'm going to put a tiny bit, not much, the end of the palette knife in there. And that's why I've got that case. The whole sole purpose of buying this case is so my brusho pots, when the lids are off, can't tip over. So let's get this stirred up a little bit. And a little bit of that stuff goes a long way. I've still not looked up, there's so many different ways you can use the crystals. I only had them Christmas time, so I'm still playing with them. That actually looks like it might be too much, because we still want the sleeve to be transparent, but as an experiment, let's have a go. Lid on that, make sure it clicks. Watercolor. It's just going to come out in a blob. There we go. That doesn't look... Oh, it is a more muted blue, isn't it? There we go. That's ready. This paint won't go to waste either. I'll do something on the book pages or something to off camera to keep it from going to waste. Oh, and of course it's still got a seal on it. That wasn't too painful to remove. Honestly, sometimes these tubes, getting the seals off of them is an absolute nightmare. That wasn't too bad. And the liquid watercolors and the small tubes of the acrylics, I tell you, the best place I found mine is the Range here in the UK. And if you've got an eagle eye, every so often, Aldi's and Lidl's have cheap packs of paint tubes. I can't believe I did that. Never mind. It doesn't matter. Go with it. What is it Bob Ross says? Happy accidents. Making a mess. Having a bit of fun. Right, so let's get some sleeves out. Pop these. I pulled these out of my collab video example just to test these. Let's get 3. 1, 2, and 3 that have been unadulterated. And a piece of my mixed media paper underneath. One that's not too super grungy. That's okay. That's okay. Oh, let's use the back of that one to make visibility a little bit better. So, oh, there we go. Now, the reason why I kept those orange strips out is when I was playing before, you really need to have something underneath here to stop yourself gluing your plastic to the paper. But even if a tiny bit, as long as you can get something in there, then you can wiggle it side to side to make sure nothing is seeping underneath. Because all these sleeves are just a thin plastic, a thin paper, and then another thin plastic on the other side. So just to stop myself from gluing them shut. So let's try. I think I'm just going to go with a makeup sponge, to be honest. Sorry if I sound really congested. I am coming off the heels of a cold and the hay fever at the moment in the UK. Oh my word. It is unreal out there, the pollen. You can see it actually floating around. I'm not really happy with that. I just want to dampen it down. I don't want to make brush marks, if that makes sense. Well, that's not really working, is it? Well, yeah, it is. A bit. Keep dabbing it. It's a bit of a mark-making exercise, isn't it? Where's that? Oh, that sponge now has got paint all over it. Put a bit more on. It is like mark making, though. You could just mark make whatever idea, but I don't want streaks. Oh, I'm like a little kid now. Let's just dab it up and down and see if we can distribute it. I don't know. Still transparent. Right. Let's pop that over there. And is there a different way we can go about this now for the next one? Yes. No. Where's my brushes? Hold on. I'm going to grab a different brush. Oh, dropping stuff. Let's try this one with an actual brush. And you could see the brush marks. Get it on with a brush and make sure it's covered all the way, I'm thinking. And then go back and dab with a sponge. Sorry, this is the only sponge one that I could find in the house. Because I buy these cheap children's sponges sometimes, depending on if I'm doing stenciling on pieces of furniture. Because what I went up and looked for was like the round sponges. And that's a bit more evenly distributed. But I got paintbrush bristles in there now. Never mind. Leave them dry. And one more. Do we do it again with the... Yes, let's do it. No, I haven't washed that brush. Let me see what else I've got in this pot. I'll try not to bump the camera now. It's another brush. And Now that's just my thinking, because the white gesso on its own, but if it takes color, it also means that I could do one that's got sort of a more antique-y effect to it, or, you know, add a bit of brown. But I want to keep track now of how the brush dries, how the acrylic dries, and how the watercolor dries, and if that even makes a difference. That makes sense. I am going back in with the same one. Doesn't matter. Just a bit of a test. And don't touch any door handles now when I'm going to wash up. So yeah, that is the idea that I wanted to experiment with, was just to see if there were different mixed media ways of, pardon me, oh, pardon me, sneezing my head off. So there we go. Right, I need to get that leftover paint onto something, probably book page, give these a wiggle back and forth, and keep these. Now, what's dinging? Oh, I'm filming with my phone. There's something on my phone dinging. Give these a wiggle to make sure I haven't glued them shut. Oh, I've just stuck my thumb through that one. Oh, Faith, you plonker. I've just stuck my thumb through that one when I picked it up. See if we can pat it back out. Yes, that's fine. So, because this is gesso and not glue, wait and see now how it dries. So, I'm going to put these away to dry and get that leftover paint onto some book pages so it doesn't go to waste. And I'll pop back on. And we'll see. Back in a tick. Well, that was fun. In the process of tidying up, I managed to get the blue, or at least most of the blue, off my fingers. I had a thought. I got 3 more new sleeves out, because in the collab video, I went on with Stays On. So I thought, let's coat 3 just with the cheap gesso and test a Stays On brown, a versified Claire brown, and a distressed brown, and see how that works. So all I'm going to do for that test is, if I can get the gesso open, there we go, I'm going to go in with another like cheap kids foam brush. You can get these in pound stores and everything. They're not expensive at all. I'm just going to brush it on and dab it. I'm not even going to bother putting anything in there. But once I've got it brushed on, I want to give it a little bit of a dab, like that, up and down, to get rid of my brush marks. So that's actually put it on a teeny bit thicker. So, as just an experiment, I'm going to do that now to the other 2. And then I'll be back with you then when everything is dry and we're ready to experiment some more. So, for you, back in a tick. Right, and these are all dried now, and even though my very clumsy painting skills, I'm quite impressed in the way that they've dried. So that was the brusho, that was the watercolor, and that was the acrylic. And even with my really messy painting, they've dried really lovely. They stick some cards in here. And they're still transparent. Again, that is a plain pocket with nothing done to it. So that's the shiny glare that you get. And that is much more muted, and you could still see the card underneath. That was the brush show. That's the watercolor, and that's the acrylic pigment added. So, not quite pleased with those. I'm going to keep these as examples. And I'll get the plain ones out now. Get this popped in. That popped out. And that went in. I'm going to pop these away a second. And don't drop them all over the floor. There we go. So that was just white, that cheap white gesso on its own versus the plain one. So it's not refracting or reflecting the light at all, the gesso. So these three we want to experiment with the ink. So on their own, we're looking at that kind of effect. So on their own, with just the white gesso, dabbed down with a sponge, it's not refracting or reflecting that's the base layer. Let's put one of those in there, see the difference. So that's with the sleeve as it comes out of the photo album, and that's with the gesso on the top. So I'm really pleased with that effect. I'm not sure what I think about the colored effect yet. So let's have a go inking these now. This, that's my 0 one. Keep these separate. So let's get a piece of paper out somewhere. Start a new one. And, ooh, which one should we test first? Oh, let's test the Tim Holtz first. And again, this does not go down straight onto plastic because it just wipes straight off. Get this blended on, and hopefully I don't have to sneeze again. Oh. Lovely. Now, the real test is leaving it to dry. So let's pop this away. And I've also seen posts about the distress inks and oxides and stuff not being UV resistant. So I don't know if any other junk journalers have come across this, that if you leave it exposed to sunlight, it's basically disappears. Try this one with Diversified Clair. I suppose it's an issue if you're doing like artwork to hang on the wall that is going to be exposed to sunlight. That some of the inks will basically vanish over time because they're not permanent. Again, a lovely effect, but I'm going to leave these to dry for a spell. That one over there, and last one to test is the Stays On, but we know Stays On works. because Stays On is a solvent based, and it can go down on straight onto the plastic. There we go, and let's have a look. And that one. So these are going to go away to dry for a bit, and we'll see how they behave. So back to the tick. Right, my darlings, these have a nice long time to dry. Let's do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison now. So there's no problems with the Stays On at all. The pine cone, I did sort of give it a little bit of a rub. You could see where it's bled a little bit onto the gesso. And that vintage photo was fine. But I'd done about a rub test before it was, before it was actually all the way dry. Let's do a comparison. I've got vintage photo. I've got 4 cards out of the collab video. We've got a plain untouched album pocket. That just white. That was just white gesso with a paintbrush. And we'll go with that Brusho crystal one. And again, it's just that very messy painting that, just sort of to learn from. So I've got, get that out of the way. Sorry if I'm still trying not to be too sniffy now. The hay fever is absolutely kicking my butt today. So that is on with just a paintbrush. I'll hold all these up now. That was with some pigment crystal added. And then, of course, gesso with some stenciling. So, as you can see, super shiny. That's the plain one. That's with the brush marks in the gesso, which are, you can't really tell on camera up against the pattern of the background. So perhaps brushing them will do it. But if I look closely, I can still see the paintbrush strokes. Kind of like it is when you're painting a room. Once you see the strokes on the wall, you can't unsee it, isn't it? So, and then that was with the crystals. Quite messily painted. I think I will try this again, but use more sort of vintagey colours to make the pockets look older. But what I have found, I think I need a better spongy tool to apply it with, so you get that more of a sort of I'm looking for, like a dimpled sort of pattern. There's a very, very rough texture to the gesso on there. But no, I'm really, really pleased, especially with this idea. And again, perhaps putting a very light tint of Brusho in there, but perhaps either finding or making myself a better sort of sponge tool where I could get a whole batch of these out and get them all done at one time, and then dried, and then flip them over and do the opposite sides of them. So no, if you stuck around with me, I hope you enjoyed taking a little bit of inspiration from a little bit of play, or perhaps being inspired to go and play yourself with something a bit different. But no, thank you ever so much for watching, and hope to see you back again soon. Bye for now.